Imagine this. The Titanic is sinking. People are fighting for seats. Families are being separated forever. And in the middle of all that chaos, someone looks at a lifeboat with only a few places left and chooses to save a dog. Not a child, not a stranger, a dog. It sounds unbelievable, maybe even cruel, but this actually happened. And more than 100 years later, people still argue about the same question. If there isn't enough room for everyone, should a pet be saved at all? Because when the Titanic disappeared into the ocean, some of the survivors weren't human. And the strangest part isn't that dogs survived. The strangest part is that thousands of people didn't. In April 1912, the Titanic began its first voyage, and people believed it was the greatest ship ever built. It was luxurious, enormous, and many thought it was impossible to sink. Wealthy passengers walked through elegant halls, enjoyed expensive dinners, and felt completely safe. But there was something on board that most people never mention: dogs. Several passengers had brought their pets with them. Some stayed in special areas of the ship, and others remained close to their owners. Nobody imagined that only a few days later, those animals would become part of one of the most famous disasters in history. Then came the night of April 14th. The Titanic hit the iceberg. At first, almost nobody panicked because the impact didn't seem serious. People kept talking and stayed in their rooms, and some even joked that a ship like the Titanic could never sink.
But slowly, everything changed. Crew members started moving faster. Passengers were told to put on life jackets. And then people realized something terrifying. There weren't enough lifeboats. Every seat suddenly became precious because every seat given to one person meant someone else might not survive. And in that moment, some people refused to leave without their dogs. One woman carried her tiny dog wrapped in a blanket, and from a distance, almost nobody noticed. Another small dog was also taken onto a lifeboat. But larger dogs weren't so lucky. Most had to stay behind. Imagine standing there and knowing the ship is going down, knowing you may never get another chance, and having to choose between saving yourself or leaving behind the animal that trusted you its entire life. People usually remember the Titanic as a story about technology, pride, and tragedy. But hidden inside that disaster is another story. When everything was falling apart, some people still couldn't abandon the ones they loved.
The next morning, rescue ships counted the survivors, and among them were dogs. Real passengers and real survivors of the Titanic. More than 100 years later, people still argue whether those dogs should have been allowed onto the lifeboats at all. But maybe that isn't the real question. Maybe the real question is this: when the world around you is collapsing, who do you take with you? What if someone doesn't choose at all? What if, when the world around you is collapsing, someone chooses everyone? A few years after the Titanic disaster, another dog became part of a story that sounds impossible. Except this time, nobody was trying to save a pet. This time, people were waiting for a dog to save them. It was 1925 in Alaska, and winter had completely taken over. Temperatures were brutally cold, snowstorms blocked entire routes, and survival itself became difficult. In a small, remote town called Nome, something terrifying began to spread: diphtheria. One by one, children started getting sick. Doctors knew exactly how dangerous it was, and they also knew there was medicine that could stop it. But there was one problem. The medicine was far away. Too far. More than 1,000 kilometers away. Ships couldn't get through the ice. Trains couldn't reach the town. Airplanes were unreliable and dangerous in those conditions. Time was running out, and people realized something terrible. The cure existed, but it might arrive too late. Then someone suggested an idea that sounded desperate. Use sled dogs. Teams of dogs would carry the medicine across frozen wilderness, through storms, ice, and temperatures cold enough to freeze exposed skin in minutes. One team ran, passed the package to the next, and then the next. Day and night. No stopping.
No second chances. Every delay could mean another child wouldn't survive. And then came the final part of the journey, the last team. The dog leading it was named Balto. Visibility was almost gone. Wind covered the trail. Ice surrounded them.
Nobody knew if they would make it, but they kept moving, kilometer after kilometer, hour after hour, until finally they arrived. The medicine reached the town. Children survived. Families survived. And suddenly, a dog became one of the most famous heroes in America. People remember Balto as the dog who saved a town. But maybe that isn't the most incredible part. Maybe the most incredible part is that while people looked at impossible conditions and saw no way forward, a group of dogs simply started running.
But what if a dog doesn't run toward danger? What if it runs toward home? In 1923, a family was traveling across the United States with their dog named Bobbie. During one stop, something went wrong. Bobbie disappeared. At first, the family searched everywhere. Streets, nearby buildings, train stations, nothing. Hours passed, then days. But eventually, they were forced to leave without him. And that's the part most people understand. Pets get lost. It happens all the time. But this story becomes unbelievable because of what happened next. Months later, after the family had already accepted that Bobbie had probably gone forever, something appeared outside their home. It was him. Thin, exhausted, covered in dirt, but alive. Somehow, the dog had crossed thousands of kilometers completely alone to return home. Nobody understood how it was possible. There were no GPS trackers, no maps, no one guiding him across cities, forests, rivers, mountains, and unfamiliar roads. Yet somehow, Bobbie kept moving in the right direction. Newspapers across America started writing about the wonder dog. People became obsessed with the mystery. How does an animal find its way home across an entire country? Even today, scientists still debate how dogs navigate over long distances. Some believe they follow scent trails. Others think they use the position of the sun or even Earth's magnetic field.
But maybe the strangest part of the story isn't how Bobbie found the way home. Maybe the strangest part is that he never stopped trying. Imagine being completely alone in a world you don't understand, surrounded by strangers, noise, hunger, freezing nights, and endless distance, but still continuing forward, because somewhere out there is the only place that feels like home. People remember Bobbie as the dog that crossed America, but maybe this story isn't really about distance. Maybe it's about something much simpler. Because sometimes the strongest force in the world isn't survival. Sometimes it's the need to return to the ones you love. But what if a dog doesn't save lives and doesn't return home? What if a dog changes history completely by accident? In the early 1900s, near the ruins of ancient Mexico, local people started noticing something strange. A dog kept returning with bones. Not animal bones. Human bones. At first, nobody paid much attention because the area was already filled with old legends about lost cities and ancient civilizations buried beneath the ground. But the dog kept coming back again and again, carrying pieces of the past out of the earth as if it was trying to show people something. Eventually, archaeologists became interested in the area, and what they discovered shocked them. Hidden beneath the ground were ancient structures connected to one of the greatest civilizations in the history of the Americas. Temples, tunnels, burial sites, entire pieces of a forgotten world that had remained buried for centuries. And somehow, the first clue had come from a dog. Stories like this sound impossible, but archaeologists have documented multiple cases where animals accidentally led humans toward important discoveries. Dogs digging in unusual places, animals uncovering bones, hidden ruins revealed because something in nature disturbed the ground. But maybe that's what makes this story feel so strange. Human beings spent years searching for answers with maps, tools, and theories, while a dog simply followed its instincts and stumbled onto history itself. Imagine walking through an ordinary landscape without realizing that beneath your feet lies an entire lost world waiting to be discovered. Ancient people, forgotten lives, civilizations erased by time. And the first creature to notice something unusual wasn't a scientist, it wasn't an explorer, it was a dog. People remember discoveries because of the archaeologists who uncover them. But maybe some discoveries begin long before humans arrive. Maybe history doesn't always reveal itself to the smartest person in the room. Sometimes it reveals itself to the first creature willing to dig.
But what if loyalty becomes so powerful that it survives even death? In the 1920s, every morning in Tokyo, a dog named Hachiko walked with his owner to the train station. And every evening, without fail, he returned to meet him again. Day after day, same station, same time. People who worked nearby started recognizing them, a professor and his loyal dog. It became part of the routine of the city. But one afternoon, everything changed. While at work, the professor suddenly died and never came home. For everyone else, life continued. Trains arrived, crowds moved through the station, days passed normally. But Hachiko didn't understand what had happened. The next evening, he returned to the station and waited for his owner to come back. Then he returned the next day, and the day after that. Weeks passed, then months, then years. Every single day, Hachiko kept coming back to the same place, sitting near the station and watching every train, as if he still believed that one day his owner would finally step out of the crowd again. At first, people ignored him. Some workers even tried chasing him away. But slowly, the station workers, local shop owners, and passengers began noticing something heartbreaking about the dog that never stopped waiting. Rain, snow, freezing winters. It didn't matter. Hachiko always returned. Nearly 10 years passed like that.
Think about how unbelievable that is. 10 years of waiting for someone who was never coming back. Eventually, newspapers across Japan started writing about the loyal dog at Shibuya Station. People traveled just to see him sitting there. And slowly, Hachiko became more than a pet. He became a symbol of loyalty itself. Today, there is a statue of him outside the station where he used to wait, and millions of people pass it every year. But maybe the saddest part of this story isn't that Hachiko waited for so long. Maybe the saddest part is that somewhere deep inside, he probably believed every arriving train still carried a chance. People remember Hachiko as the dog who waited for his owner. But maybe this story isn't really about dogs at all. Maybe it's about love. Because sometimes love is so strong that even time can't convince us to let go.
And if these stories reminded you why dogs are called humanity's best friends, leave a like on this video. And don't forget to subscribe, because there are many more unbelievable true stories that sound completely impossible until you realize they actually happened.